Hello everyone, Steve Gage here, NASM certified personal trainer and co-owner of Engage Fitness. Today we're going to work on a 20-minute segment on relieving tension in the shoulders. All the muscles around the shoulders as well as specifically the shoulders themselves. Because for the most part, it's not always just the shoulder that's creating tension, it's the areas around that shoulder that create that stiffness or just lack of mobility. So we're going to start with one of the basic stretches. It's a lot of stretches the rotator cuff around that shoulder, and a lot of that gets tight because a lot of us are sitting a little more now, getting into that rounded front position. So let's try to open it up a little bit and stretch the shoulder rotator cuff. So we get our elbows glued right to the sides. Just pretend like they're cemented there, they're not going to move. Your wrist is in line with the elbow, hands open to create that stiffness. And we're just going to separate those hands as far apart as we can, keeping those elbows glued. And you'll notice as you get those hands farther apart, you'll feel that stretch right where that shoulder connects to the torso. That's where we're trying to feel that stretch more towards the back, if anything, and just getting those hands as far back as we can just before we start to feel those elbows come up. So again, we want to keep those elbows glued, hands out to the sides, really feeling that stretch in the back of the shoulder, but as well as across the top. Now we're just holding this position as far as we can, taking in those big inhale and exhales. And each few breaths, we're trying to get those hands back just a smidge. Again, keeping those hands in line with the elbows, because if we come up or too far down, we lose a lot of that stretch. We want to create that 90-degree angle in that arm. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then we slowly bring those hands back to the middle, relieve that tension and stress. And making sure the traps are not up by the ears, they're down and back in that shoulder position, relaxed. So getting back into that same position, 15 to 20 second hold, just trying to get a little farther each few breaths. And if you want to add a little bit of extra stretch, you can rotate the thumb backwards towards the backside. Again, that rotation is going to add a little more stretch in that rotator cuff. And we're just reaching back, just until we start to feel those elbows come up. Slowly come back in. Okay, relax. Shake off any tension in those shoulders. So next we're working the rotation of that shoulder. So we're going to drop down to the floor. So we're getting our arm in line with the shoulder. Knees are in line with the hips as well as the shoulder. You can have the legs extended or bent. It's entitled whichever feels more comfortable. But we're raising the hand right over the elbow, straight, and the shoulders are on top of each other. We're pressing on that shoulder that's on the floor. We're relaxing that hand, getting it flat and relaxed, and we're taking the opposite hand, coming over, and just pressing slowly and easily, trying to get those fingertips to the floor. Keeping that elbow in line with the shoulder. And just applying light pressure just until you feel there's that wall. Now we're stretching. You should feel this all towards where that shoulder attaches to the arm at the bottom here. Feeling that stretch. And keeping that shoulder as much as we can down on the ground. Because as soon as that shoulder comes up, we lose a lot of that stretch and it puts a lot more this uncomfortable pain on that shoulder. So we want to keep that shoulder flat on the floor. You can even lean into it a little more, get into that socket, and then just applying that light pressure as low as you can go, not jamming it down, just easily pressing down, trying to get those fingertips down. Again, it's not a competition. This is a tender and stiff area for a lot of individuals. because we don't practice this range of motion. So if you're not able to get those fingertips down to the floor, again, don't stress it. But if you are able to bend those fingers, the next position would be try to get that palm flat. Again, we're not jamming that hand down because it will hurt. So we want it nice, easily press down on that hand, and then hold it for 15 to 20 seconds, and then come back. Let the back of that hand touch the mat or your floor, and then return back to that position. Again, we're just working those tight fibers back and forth, giving us a little more freedom in that shoulder. And we're keeping that wrist in line with the elbow, because as we come out or in, we lose a lot of that stretch. We want to create that lever, that 90-degree shape with the arm. And relax, right back to the mat. Then we switch to that other side, same exact position. And you may find one side is a little more stiff and unable to move than the other. Totally fine, totally normal. Everybody has those sides that are just different. That's totally fine and normal. But again, we're getting that arm in line with that shoulder. Knees are in line with the hips and shoulders. And we're bending that arm so the hand is right over that elbow. Relax the wrist. And making sure, as again, the shoulders are on top. We're not hanging way back here. We want the shoulders on top of each other, putting a little bit of weight on that shoulder. And then with the other hand coming up and over, and just pressing as lightly as we can with a little bit of pressure. And just holding this for 15 to 20 seconds. Turn that back of the hand to the mat, let that touch sit for just a second or two, and then come right back into that position. And we're trying to find that sweet spot of I feel nothing or this is excruciatingly painful. We should feel no pain. More or less, we want to feel that little bit of tightness in the stretch. If there's any shooting pain or discomfort, stop. It should be a mild amount of discomfort, but not excruciatingly painful. And then back to the mat. Again, just working on that rotation of the shoulder, loosening up those fibers and giving us a little more freedom in that shoulder. Okay, next this is called thread the needle. So we're getting on all fours. This is going to stretch anybody who has kind of that golf ball sensation under the knot under their shoulder blade. This is going to help alleviate some of that tension. So we're getting on all fours. Wrists are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath those hips. So we're raising one hand up, just keeping it straight, creating a little bit of rotation of the shoulder, and then sneaking that hand underneath the other. We're trying to get that same shoulder down to the floor. Creating a rotation in the spine a little bit, and just relaxing. And if you need that little bit of extra stretch in the back, you can use that other hand, grab those hands together, and just kind of pull away from that shoulder, and then even lean in to that side. So you're pulling this way and leaning that way. So you're getting that little bit of extra stretch in that shoulder blade, as well as the upper back. 15 to 20 seconds, 2 to 3 times, and then turn back to neutral. And that's the same formula for any of these stretches. 15 to 20 second holds, 2 to 3 times. Anything more than that, the area starts to get aggravated and inflamed. So we want to make sure we're stretching the area and not making the problem area worse. So just sneaking that hand underneath, rotating that opposite shoulder out a little bit, and rotating the spine. So we'll get a little bit of the low back in this as well, but it's primarily focusing on that shoulder blade right here in the back. And again, if you need that little bit of extra stretch, you can use that opposite hand to grab together and just pull this in the direction that that arm is going, and then lean the shoulder the opposite direction. And then return back to that neutral position. In a lot of these positions, you can do seated, standing, or kneeling. It's whatever feels more comfortable, because all the stretches are coming from the upper torso. The legs are kind of just there to give us that extra support. So next we're going to work, again, all the muscles in the upper back. Again, they get a little stretched out because a lot of us are in that seated position and we get tight towards the front. So we're taking our fingers, interlacing them in between each other, and then flipping the palm forward. So then we're going to be pushing away from our body. We're going to create a slight arch in the upper back because we're separating all the muscles in the back, the shoulder blades, the rhomboids, the teres medius, all that stuff in the back. We're just rounding forward, pushing forward at the same time. You're stretching everything out. Each few breaths, try to get a little farther. And then bring it back to the middle. Relax. Shaking off any tension in the shoulders. And then one more time, interlace those fingers, flip the palm out, and press forward. Getting a slight arch in that back, spreading out your shoulders, your shoulder blades, and just reaching forward. Three, two, one. Slowly bring it back in and relax. Okay, next was the arm cross. So we're bringing one arm across the body. We're trying to bring it right above the upper chest, so like right where that collarbone is, if we can get it there. We're trying to get that arm flat, keeping the arm locked, and with the other hand coming underneath, right above the elbow, trying to press that hand into the chest. And you may need to adjust where that underarm is placed. As long as it's not on the joint, that's what we want to try to avoid. Because everybody, again, is built differently, so they may need to move different parts of the arm to feel the stretch, but we're pulling that arm into the chest, feeling that stretch all across the shoulder and a little bit towards the back. And we're just pulling that arm in. 15 to 20 seconds. And relax. Again, when we release this stretch, we're a slow release. We're not just letting it swing back out, because then that leads us into injury if we pull something when the body's moving too quickly. So same thing, arm across, right about shoulder level. Getting that arm straight, arm starting underneath, giving it that little pull towards the body. Hand is open. We want to create that little bit of stiffness and rigidity, there's the word, in that shoulder. Because the straighter that arm is, the more stretch we get in that arm, that shoulder. Because you'll notice if the arm bends, we lose a lot of that stretch. You want to keep that lever straight. And then slow release. So next we're going to stretch the traps, because a lot of the times people carry their stress in their shoulders, and by the end of the day, their shoulders are up here when they started, they were down and relaxed. So let's relieve some of that tension. So for this, we're going to be seated. You can either be in a chair or on your floor. It's whatever feels more comfortable. We're going to take one hand. We're going to sit on that hand. And then just with the opposite hand, grab that neck, that head, and then just stretch it to the side. So my arms are a little longer than I think the average person, so I'm going to kneel on my position. Again, you can change where you feel this the most. So I'm going to kneel on my hands to lock it down, because the reason we're sitting on the hand is it stretches out that shoulder, and then when we move the head, it adds that little bit of extra stretch in that trap. So again, we're sitting up, kneeling, and just pulling nice and easy to the side, feeling that stretch from the neck all the way down to the end of the shoulder. And nice and easy, we're not cranking on that neck. We want to start on the side of the head and just slowly ease to the side for 15 to 20 seconds. Right back to the middle. Same thing on the other side. Creating that weight on that hand, getting it as long as we can for that stretch. And then opposite hand comes on over the head, and then just give it a stretch. And slow release. Okay, last stretch is going to stretch out the chest as well as the shoulders, because like I said, a lot of us are sitting more, we get into that rounded, hunched position, so we want to open up the chest, open up the shoulders, allow those shoulders to move around like they were supposed to. So we're interlacing our fingers right behind our back, keeping that tall, upright position. Again, you can do this kneeling, sitting, or standing. As long as you can get those hands behind your back and they're not hitting anything, that's ideal. Tall spine, shoulder blades, shoulders down. We don't want them up by the ears. So we're keeping a slight bend in the elbow. So first we're squeezing those shoulder blades together, opening up the chest and shoulders, and then we're going to raise those hands as high as you can go. Not just until the point where we start to feel we're coming forward. Because again, we want to keep that tall spine. Because you'll notice as you come forward, you lose a lot of the stretch. So we want to keep that tall spine, shoulders back, and just raising those hands up, 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 feeling it in the shoulders and opening up the chest. Slow, controlled breath. Again, just finding that sweet spot of I don't feel anything and oh my God, I'm going to break my shoulder. We don't want that. We want to find that sweet spot of tension where it's a stretch and there's no pain. Again, stretching should be feeling no pain, a little discomfort, but no excruciating pain where we feel we need to call the doctor. Then slow release, relax those shoulders, shake off any tension in the hands, the shoulders. And then one more round of those. Again, getting those hands behind the back, fingers interlaced, slight bend in the elbow, Squeeze those shoulder blades together and then raise those hands. Slow release and relax. Definitely incorporate some of these exercises. I would not suggest all of them in the same day. That's a lot to stretch on the body. 2 to 3, especially if you're suffering from shoulder stress or discomfort, it's going to help alleviate some of that stress and allow those shoulders to move like they're supposed to. And making sure after we're stretching, we're drinking plenty of water, because what happens when we stretch, we break up those knots and areas of tension, and those areas that we have with the knots are holding little toxins in the body. So once we release them, they release into the body. So we want to make sure we drink plenty of water and help flush them out. It's going to decrease the soreness and discomfort later, especially if you're doing some heavy stretching. So I hope these stretches were helpful and can help alleviate some of that shoulder tension and increase that shoulder mobility, because who doesn't want that, and decrease pain. Because that's the goal, is that pain-free, able to move life. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Be safe, be kind, and choose to be well. Take care.